Hello there, everybody. Welcome to the newest Praxichat episode. Today we're discussing Obi-Wan Kenobi, a deep dive into the greatest Jedi legend. And today we have members of our Praxi community. I'm Live Long Live Force. I enjoy living Star Wars with my family, and I am the secretary on the Praxeum board. And I like Kenobi, or one word I could use to describe Obi-Wan Kenobi is I just go with mentor.
My name is Lisa Mountain. I am a co-host on the podcast Legends Library, where we discuss everything Legends of the Star Wars universe, and also one of the board members. I didn't think of a great thing to describe Kenobi other than just, I agree, he's the best.
Best is good.
I'm Grand Admiral Douche. My name's Kevin. I'm not part of the Praxeum board. I am a mod on the Praxeum subreddit. Kenobi, I guess I'm gonna play. Oh shoot! What did Kip call it in the council sessions? It's basically the Star Wars equivalent of Devil's Advocate. Can't remember what it was, but I'm gonna play that. When I think Kenobi, I think failure, because he allowed the Chosen One to screw up his whole life and yada yada. You know the story. I have nothing to promote. I just like to talk Star Wars.
I'm Kyle. Username Ambitious Cheesecake. I'm the social media manager for the Praxeum. I'm on the board of directors. I'm also a moderator on the subreddit Discord server. And my one word for Kenobi is that he's based.
Right?
I almost want to change mine to like negotiator or master troll.
Right, he is like a troll. That's true. Yeah, I mean, especially we'll talk about later when we talk about the Clone
that kind
Wars,
of falls
that was
under being
probably the
based.
height.
Maybe sassy.
Sassy.
Ooh,
He's
fierce.
definitely sassy.
Yeah. And we're going to go over a lot in his life today, so we're all assuming that everyone watching has seen the movies, is familiar with the character enough, maybe even read some of the novels, but we're probably going to go into more detail than you've seen just watching the movies and maybe just the Clone Wars. Yeah. So does anyone, I'm aware about the details of his childhood. I know a few things, but I'm not sure if anyone knows more than me, based on what we've been reading. A lot of it comes from what Kevin referred to before we got on the Jedi Apprentice series, which was a youth series written mostly by Judy Watson. That he was born, before he was born on, Dave Wolverton said he was born in Tula. Other sources say Coruscant, and then George Lucas, Stu John, after talking to Jon Stewart, that famous interview. And pretty universally that he began training at age 3. I think Yoda was the one that found him. And he had a brother named Owen, which I think is odd, but and his best friends were Bant Aaron, who was a female Mon Calamari, who was about a year and a half younger than him, and Garen Muln, who was a human male the same age. And then he had an arch nemesis called Brook Chung, who literally reminds me of Draco Malfoy from Harry Potter. Like even the look of him. Does anyone have anything to add about his childhood?
No, he did. So he performed really well in the last competition before he aged out of eligibility, and he ended up winning. And like his last chance was Qui-Gon, and the Qui-Gon's like, nah, I'm not really feeling it. So he did go to the Agri-Corps, and that was like the whole first book of the Jedi Apprentice series, first and second, I believe, because Qui-Gon was assigned to the same planet on some sort of unrelated mission. They ended up working together. Rest is history.
Yeah, I think because Qui-Gon was still in pain from Xanatos, who was his first apprentice, who turned against him, and kind of like a Dooku that found out his parent, he was born something, and resented going to the Jedi, and losing his status, and just, became evil. So he didn't want to go through that pain again of connecting with somebody just to see them leave him.
Xanatos he's in one of the books like straight away. Like he's in Dark Rival, which is like the second of the Jedi Apprentice series. So like they really introduced that character in, and then like kind of set him up as like the rival, I guess, for Obi-Wan.
And what was the last? Was it Broken Circle? Was the one where they resolved that? And
Yeah.
then they sort of had a couple more. That was sort of one of my. I don't know if I would say complaints, but I would say that was like a weak spot of the series because they resolved that, and then it was what was it? Tall's death was the next crisis, and then after that, it was just sort of one or two random things, and it sort of fizzled out. But I don't. I wouldn't say they resolved it too early, but I feel like it lost a lot of identity. The series did after they took care of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, those books are mainly a bunch of planetary missions, political or dealing with social aspects. And then big thing from that series early on was, I think, books 4 through 6, which were when Obi-Wan Kenobi was on the planet Melita Dawn and discovered that the kids were at war with, like the elders, they called them. Basically, anyone who wasn't a child was older. And the middle generation died a long time ago. They kept fighting the Melita and the Dawn, kind of like that Star Trek The Next Generation episode where they can't even decide what the planet's going to be named. So he really bonds with a group of kids and decides to leave the Jedi Order. It turned out to be temporary, of course, that we know now, but at the time it was a big thing, and Qui-Gon felt really hurt and left him there. Because Qui-Gon basically put him in an impossible situation. Either you help your friends live, like literally they will die if we leave, or you help me get this Jedi Master Tall back to get aid because she might die. So unfortunately, he was placed, and he was 13. So
He was
felt
13.
like, yeah, that's such a big thing for someone so young to decide. Really not fair for him to be put in that situation, but he chose what his heart felt at the time, and suffer the consequences for it.
I think a big influence in that part, though, is when he met that one female. I don't know if is it Cerasi or Karasi?
Yeah, Cersei. I've always called her Cersei, but who knows how it's pronounced.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Cerasi. Like, when they met, like, and that's when he had his first kind of romantic entanglement with someone, and then eventually she does die in his arms. So, like, he was willing to kind of give up being a Jedi for her, which seems to be a common thing for him. Any kind of like blonde woman, he gets a little bit of a weak in the knees. Like,
That's true. It's a separate thing for blondes.
like, let's be real, they're all blondes. Like,
well, not all of them, but most of them.
I picture Annalene as brunette, but like.
Oh. Yeah, Annalene's brunette. I didn't count Annaline.
No, that's what I said. There's a fourth.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, we could discuss that when we get to the end. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So, like you said before, he was a rebellious youth. It's interesting because, when he talks with Yoda in, the first couple movies about, was I any different when I was young, about acting impulsively? It's not how we come to think of it. It's more like the Jedi way, where he has his anxiety. And I think Obi-Wan's actually a very anxious person, and that he deals with his anxiety, but acting deeper into being a Jedi. So he just intensifies the Jedi-ness, like fold over that to deal with that. So like you could see that in kind of his actions, especially when he's younger, and it kind of is a theme throughout his life of him acting just kind of impulsively to deal with how he's feeling. It's like, because sometimes he doesn't have time or the luxury of dealing with that, so he just acts. Kind of a Jedi trait, maybe. What do you guys think of that?
I think some of that's inherited. I was just going to say, wasn't some of that inherited from Qui-Gon?
Yeah.
The same thought. Yeah. Because, like, Qui-Gon himself was, like, a reckless kind of, There also was a scene in the Jedi Apprentice series where Qui-Gon, like, when he's bent on getting revenge, like, I don't know if Obi-Wan stops him, or how he stops him, but he's able to, like, not convince him to just still be a Jedi, because it's, revenge is not the Jedi way.
I do enjoy the, like, sort of... I know gray Jedi is such a, like, sticky term, but... And obviously Qui-Gon's not great, but definitely not, like, dogmatical at the same point. There's a scene... Yeah, the scene in The Phantom Menace where Obi-Wan's like, well, if you weren't such a contrarian dickhead, you'd already be on the council. Well, you can't have two apprentices. I'm going to train him anyway. Obi-Wan's good. Just, fly, baby bird, fly.
And that's a good thing you're talking about that. It's that really, episode 1, we see kind of the end of the relationship, of course, because Qui-Gon ends up dying. But we see how hurt Obi-Wan was by that decision, or kind of a slap in the face he felt of Qui-Gon taking, or wanting to take Anakin as Padawan and getting replaced. It actually gets echoed earlier in his life with Qui-Gon, and I think he's always had maybe a fear of being rejected because of how they came together in the very beginning, how hard it was for him to be accepted as a Padawan. And he, later on, what was written in a newer book was how the council actually offered Qui-Gon a seat to be on the High Council. And he was debating it internally, like Qui-Gon does. He doesn't share anything with Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan just wants everything laid out before him factually. He likes the facts and knowing what he doesn't want. He doesn't want to feel his way through it. He just kind of wants to act, unless it creates some anxiety. Then he just acts. But when Obi-Wan finds out by accident, he's very hurt, because that would mean that he wouldn't be his master anymore, and he would be 17 and looking for a new master. And he's like, "Am I the only one in all of history who ever have to find a new master at 17?" So he's very, dramatic that way. Of course, drama is another word for him, I guess. So, yeah, I think there's always that kind of push and pull between the two, since they are very different personalities. They see the Force completely differently, and they have different interpretations. So, yeah, I enjoy seeing that aspect. You can see the Force in different ways.
Again, going on with Qui-Gon, like, he sees the Force differently because he was the only one who's ever been able to talk to the Wills. So, like, with that, like, he kind of has, like, a higher understanding. Like, he was the one who knows how to, appear as, like, living Force again. Whereas, like, Yoda didn't even know how to do that.
He's achieved Jedi Nirvana.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, he was actually, he learned to do it. I think, was it when he was all angsty over Tal's death? He went and found, or was led to this group that taught him how to do it. And then he, learned. And when it comes to Qui-Gon, there was a lot of differences, but there are some similarities to them in that we see history repeat itself kind of first from Qui-Gon, and then kind of again with Anakin. Obi-Wan is that person who's in the middle, that really kind of see both ways from him being center. So how do you guys, what beats do you see that were similar with Qui-Gon, that they repeated? I could see the apprentice thing definitely with Xanatos.
I made a comment once about, someone made a post, like, how would have it turned out differently if Anakin had a different master? And this is kind of good. It's probably going to bleed into one of our later sections, but it does go back to Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. Like, imagine if someone like Qui-Gon would, and that's like the whole point of the story. Imagine if someone like Qui-Gon was the one who mentored Anakin instead of Obi-Wan. Like, he's more willing to go beyond the doctrine. He's more willing to bend the rules. Obi-Wan, I think, was sort of hamstrung, by the fact that he was basically just, his master's dying. His master's dying wish is train this kid that I found and you don't know from Adam. And he's like, yeah, I swear to God, I'll do it. But at the same time, like, he has that emotional connection to that promise, so he, at times when he should be harder on Anakin, give him some, a little more tough love to try and curb those sociopathic to psychopathic tendencies that he started showing up early on. But on the other hand, he's just like he's more like immersed in the doctrine than Qui-Gon was, where it's basically, I know that objectively what you're doing is wrong, and my only recourse, trapped between my loyalty to the Order and my loyalty to my master, my old master, is just to sort of like turn a blind eye to it,
One thing to consider, though, is that Obi-Wan still didn't even obey Jedi orders in the way that everyone else did. Like, he loved him like a brother. At what point did he give up being a Jedi to the truest form? And then, like, that's where a lot of that comes in. Like, he let Anakin get away with things or didn't teach him the way he should have taught him because
Right.
it was a sibling at that point, not an apprentice.
I think it was often, he gets a lot of heat for that, but I mean, he was basically a teenage dad. Like, he was 16 when Anakin was born. And he didn't have that time, that precious time of being an adult before he started raising them. So it was like he just kind of went from being a Padawan to being a master. And I think that was also something that was, so he didn't have that time to self-reflect on himself. And I felt like they were together. When they were together, it was fine. And I honestly don't think anything would have happened except for Palpatine's interference. If Palpatine did not exist, I really think that, Obi-Wan obviously maybe knew what was happening between Anakin and Padme, but, like, they probably would have went along with it and just kind of kept going as they were with the war.
Well, don't forget.
And they're separating them and making them kind of, because Obi-Wan didn't know how to exist without Anakin, if that makes sense. Like, he was trained as an adult with this guy who actually helped him. Like, he had Qui-Gon earlier, and then he had Anakin, and both of them were like the other sides of him in a way. So when he was left alone, it was like, what do I do? You know what I mean? He didn't know how to function kind of by himself sometimes. You see that in some of his missions. Well, it's better than the comic book version from the Darth Vader comics where they have Palpatine, Sidious, hovering over Shmi with his, like, spirit fingers going, my creation or something.
And that's what I was talking about. Like, I knew that the new canon was very specific in him personally going to Shmi and stuff like that. I couldn't remember.
They took that back too. No, they retconned that. So.
Oh, did they?
Okay,
yeah, everyone was probably like, no, that's not what we meant. Well, that's the thing. Obi-Wan, I think, I was trying to think about which character in all of Star Wars there has been more written about and produced. And it might be Obi-Wan Kenobi. Luke Skywalker's kind of up there too. Is like neck and neck. But you think about all the different things we've seen, as well as novels, comics, games, it might just be Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of older games of Luke, but it's like, wow, there's a lot.
If you count Anakin and Vader as one, I think it's Anakin. I think he's like the most like written about or like media about, I guess.
Oh,
that's true.
Yeah, that's the thing of it. That's the thing. They share a lot of stories, but I feel like Vader has a lot more stories of his own.
Right.
So you guys know how I'm like obsessive with my notes and how I write a lot. So when I thought I'll write some stuff of Obi-Wan, I'm like, how can you write about Obi-Wan? Because he's the guy who does everything for everyone. I printed out all the things he's been in, so every like comic, the Scholastic stuff, the movies, everything. It was 14 pages long.
Yeah,
of everything. Those are all individual stuff. So I wrote down like all the dates of like all the stuff and like just a little like brief plot line of like each book. But I was like 14 pages. I don't have time to do all this.
So much. That's the thing. Like how we like an outline is the best way because I'm like this is a lot of stuff that we could cover so much about him. So just one thing, we just cover the relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan. It would take like 4 hours. Just that one thing.
Have you guys seen the how it should have ended videos of Star Wars?
No.
There's this they're so funny. Like it's always like, it should have been this way, of course. That's the whole the premise. But there's this one scene where Obi-Wan says to the Jedi Council, he's on Camino, and it's, he's like, can someone send another ship? Because like I can't really bring Jango and Boba in my starfighter. Like he's not going to sit on my lap, and like, and they're like, oh, we can't help, we can't do anything. He's like, can't send anyone.
Sitting on cushions.
Yeah, and they're like, no, we're not busy. And he's like,
so
I'm doing everything. And he's always doing everything. So.
That's true, because he's in a one-man starfighter, so what is he supposed to do if he captures him? It's like, sit on my lap?
And Boba's like trying to food.
I hope it has a
Nothing.
bathroom and a fridge.
We just imagine they
Yeah.
would sleep.
No, instead you get a catheter and nutrient paste.
No wonder they love the temple so much. I mean, yeah, like that would seem like heaven, going back to the temple and just chilling. I know they have a lot of Jedi tricks, and we've seen. I remember him. I'll talk about it later in more detail. But when he was on a mission with Bail Organa, and he was doing his flow, and he was going into it was a small confined quarters, but he took up every space, just doing his movements and things like that. I think it's Alchaka meditation, and so it's like they had ways to. Yeah, and like they had things to hold their breath, and they had just all these little tricks to extend their energy or hold back things. It was kind of interesting how they could do that.
Well, that was one of the best parts of the episode 3 novelization was basically Mace Windu just sort of yanking him off for a couple minutes, like, "Hey, man, you are literally the best at this form, and this form is the best to not get killed. So honestly, you're invulnerable. Good on you." Like,
yeah, there's a quote. I remember a quote that May said about that. It was, "Who is the real master? The one who developed their own form, meaning himself, or the one who's mastered the classic form, meaning Obi-Wan." Obi-Wan's like, really? And Obi-Wan felt like always like he wasn't good enough.
He had a huge case of imposter syndrome, and I can't believe that we haven't brought that up yet.
Exactly. But I can't believe I'm here. Yeah.
That's like a huge part of his character too. Is just like this imposter syndrome of like knowing that, and that's he's self-aware of the fact that he's limited in his beliefs. Like he sticks to the Jedi doctrine because he knows he can never be like Qui-Gon. And like when Mace said that, he's like, basically, you're probably the best swordsman we have, and he just couldn't believe it. And that's a huge part of his character the whole way through. And it's kind of sad that like despite the fact that he constantly doubts himself, it did end up the way it did. It's kind of tragic, but
out of his hands too. I guess you could do everything right and still lose. And I think that's kind of Obi-Wan's theme in his life too. I mean, he loses about 54% of the battles he fights. I remember seeing an analysis on it. I was like, yep, that's about right. Especially if you consider the Clone Wars, and I guess his ass kicked just about every other time. But it's interesting, like with his lightsaber fighting, when he was having been the master of Surisu, he was kind of angry about it. He resented because Qui-Gon actually in the newer stuff, Qui-Gon's the one who made him practice over and over. And it turns out that Qui-Gon was doing it because he wanted to be so grounded in the basics that they become instinct. Because he knew for Obi-Wan, instinct was his greatest power. That's where he'll draw his strength, is he just has to know it. Like you said, he's not the most powerful. He just has to practice and learn and be so ingrained in it to really be on top of his game. And he felt bad when he found that out. He's like, oh, he was trying to help me after all. I thought he was just holding me back. Like, why can't I go practice with 2 lightsabers like this person? Or why can't I, be that or do another form like a lot of his peers? So it's kind of wise of Qui-Gon to do that for him. So kind of even knowing himself, kind of that path of self-discovery for him is interesting. I feel like he's one of the most realistic characters on Star Wars, like knowing so much about him. It's like, yeah, I could see that happening. Yeah, I do. Well, I like being older, like you could see that in younger people. Like, are they ready? Like, there's milestones for things. And Obi-Wan did live in time and in order that there was, you learn this at this age, this at this age. It was pretty, there was progression. The problem with that is, of course, the Jedi Order didn't know how to deal with people like Anakin, who came in with basically PTSD or borderline personality disorder or something from the trauma that he had incurred as a slave, and then being ripped from his only existence he's ever known. and then being manipulated from an evil Sith Lord. So, you know, there's a lot to deal with, and sometimes you can only help people so much, and that's also the tragedy of Obi-Wan is he just wants to help. He wants to be given as much power as he needs to help, to do the will of the Force, to make a difference, and it's not good enough sometimes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. When you looked at how Obi-Wan saw Anakin, he saw Anakin was the making of him. He felt like Anakin was a gift to him. Like, I am so fortunate to be given this boy. He drove me crazy. We hated each other a lot of times, but he felt like he pushed him. Anakin, when he was around, there's that time when they're in this ship, and I think this beginning of Revenge of the Sith novel, that Anakin calms Obi-Wan down. He's anxious. He's like, oh my gosh, we're going to die, basically. And he's like, oh, we got this. So I think Obi-Wan was able to relax and be more joyous. Because Anakin, having that power kind of counterbalance his weakness, I think helped him. I think really if it was the manipulation. I really do. I think if it wasn't for that, planting the seeds in Anakin, things would have turned out much differently. I mean, it's just if that was in your plot.
Yeah, I feel like Obi-Wan is kind of like one of the best choices for a master for Anakin. Given the circumstances of Palpatine, I don't see, like, a situation where Anakin doesn't follow as long as Palpatine's there. The only thing I've thought of, or, like, maybe it could have, like, a better master could have been found, would have been somebody else who's dealing with a similar, like, secret relationship. And I can't think of any other Jedi like that off the top of my head.
I always thought that Thulm, man. Thulm would be perfect. Thulm would be perfect. Look at Quinlan Voss is arguably throughout his life a bigger piece of shit than Anakin, and he turns out a-okay in the end. He actually survives past the purge, like way past the purge. Quinlan does, but Thulm, I think, would be the way Thulm raised up Quinlan. I think he'd be perfect to be a master to Anakin.
Well, Obi-Wan saw a lot of Qui-Gon and Anakin. So he did make that connection, like, oh, he's got the flair for the dramatic. He's got the disregard for the rules. You know, he's got more of that connection thing that, like, he was lacking. But he
can't ignore that. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Since you can't ignore the fact that the Force did have Qui-Gon find Anakin. So, like, maybe he was actually the best to teach him in the end. But, Qui-Gon.
Well, then remember, if you saw the Mandalorian extended thing, you know, Filoni's talking about how the Duel of the Fate song from episode 1 at the end when they're fighting Darth Maul is actually, to him, it means kind of a literal thing that the fate of the galaxy is actually in balance at the moment. This is a duel of the fate of the whole Jedi Order. Like, if and they lose. But if they, you know, different things would have happened. Like, if Qui-Gon lived through that fight, then how would that had like a butterfly effect through time and helped Anakin? You know, there's less speculation of Qui-Gon. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, do you think Anakin's the kind of person? You know, teenagers fall usually in one of two camps. They either take what their mentors do and double down on it and make it more intense, or they rebel against it. And that's the thing with Obi-Wan partnered with Qui-Gon. He was a rebellious kind of person. So actually that was perfect for him because that made him opposite of it. Actually, I'm following the rules because I got to balance out this guy because he's not following the rules at all. And so that actually kind of made him a better Jedi, you know, in a way. So do you think that had an impact with Anakin? Was he the kind of person?
That's an interesting idea. In that sense, I almost wonder if somebody like Quinlan Voss could have been a better master, because, like, Quinlan Voss is, like, the ultimate, like, crazy Jedi, I'd say. Like, I can't think, like, with the old Jedi Order, I can't think of, like, a Jedi that's, like, crazier while still being a Jedi.
I've got one.
I almost wonder if they could have balanced each other out, or, like, I don't know.
So I'll throw out my like normaler to balance him out.
Not really balance him out, but like almost like if Anakin and Quinlan could have like I don't know meshed together somehow.
Throw out a very controversial one. I know we're getting off of Obi-Wan a little bit, but what about Vergier? If she taught Anakin, now that would have been
that would have been cool.
Which Vergere?
There was
New Jedi Order Vergere or Legacy Vergere?
Oh, I mean, we don't know too much prior to before NJO. I'll let you guys.
Is she first in outboard flight? Is that where she's first referenced, or we first see her?
No, in
She's first
Rogue
referenced
Planet.
in Rogue Planet,
Rogue
yeah.
Planet. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's
Isn't
fine.
she a Rogue Planet?
Now, chronologically, Outbound Flight takes place. Was that? Oh, that takes place later too. Yeah, no, then Rogue Planet.
And that's a hard thing. As having someone who's like raised kids, you look back and think, what can you have done differently? And at the time, you think you're there, but later on, maybe you weren't, and you weren't even aware. And I think it's neat. Yeah, but it's every parent, and like you see yourself in that for sure, because everyone has things they regret they've done. But also that you see it have. Oh gosh, I forgot what I was going to say. He, like his mentorship when it started with Anakin. Oh gosh, I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry, someone else take over.
Here, kind of going back to what don't have the light without dark, and there's darkness first before there's light. Yeah. So that's why.
The Jedi make the light
from the dark. There would be no light without dark.
You can't talk about Obi-Wan without philosophy, because he's a deep character, and a lot of deep things come from him.
Yeah, he's very philosophical.
But there can't always be light.
The interesting thing is, like, leading up to the prequel era, the dogmas just started. It got progressively tighter and tighter, like the rules and stuff. Like, I mean, look at Tales of the Jedi. Like, there were Jedi families. Like Nomi Sunrider's husband had just been knighted.
And I think it's not a bad thing that they refine it over the years of lessons they learn, because like, oh, this happened that was bad because of this. But the problem becomes is you don't allow any room for the other when it appears to you, like Anakin, like someone. Well, what about this person? And it always makes me wonder, what do they do with other Force-sensitive people if they encounter like an 8-year-old with Force-sensitive abilities? Well, we don't have a place for you to go. You know, you're shit out of luck because we don't have you're too old to train. It's like the game of life, but you missed that square. You missed the Jedi.
Yeah.
I think the tightening of the diet, it basically led to the ultimate failure of the Order, because how can you claim that you're part of this living force if you detach yourself? Because there's a very solid detachment. Like, you can't feel this, you can't feel that, you can't care for anybody.
You would think they would have like a division of trauma or something to do with kids that had Kimler, because I mean they took younglings 4 and 5, like Rel Alvaros was 5 when he got into the Order, so it's like
they are child soldiers. Like,
there was no OSHA department, no nothing.
And you're right, the war screws you up, and the war separated the Jedi from each other, so they didn't have each other to reflect and go, hey, like, this is it. Why are we here? Yeah, it came between the two of them. It thinned their numbers, obviously, by killing a lot, and it made a lot of Padawans become Jedi Knights well before they were able. I mean, Obi-Wan.
In charge of child soldiers.
Yeah, exactly. And then they made younglings Padawans early. I mean, you had Cal Kestis, who was a Padawan for like 2 or 3 years. Gosh, probably since he was 11 or 12, like younger than they normally would be, and just in a war zone the minute they become Padawans. So you
great game, by the way.
Going to war.
I love that game.
Me too. Oh, we should talk about the game. I know. And yeah, I remember mine was before was just how you raise a kid as best as you can during the time that you're given. Like Gandalf says, you don't get to decide what happens, just how you react to it. And the thing is, like, raising him in a war zone under the dictation of a Sith Lord who's pulling every string, just kind of seems like you don't have any hope of, escaping that. And yeah, because that was the point of having a very long Padawanship, is that you have to encounter every scenario, learn every situation, and how things apply, and how to make the hard choices. And he didn't have anyone to guide him, so he was guided by the only mentor he had, who was a Sith Lord. So, yeah. I mean, so Palpatine kind of swooped in and became that mentor. under Obi-Wan's rug, so
Say fatherly figure
sucks.
almost instead of mentor.
Yeah.
Because, like, if Obi-Wan's the brother, then definitely Pops was the father.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, because of his age, let alone.
I feel like part of the issue with like Obi-Wan and Anakin was looking to Obi-Wan as a father, but Obi-Wan was looking to Anakin as a brother. So that kind of like dissonance is part of the issue. Yeah, so I feel like with Qui-Gon it would have been like a defined father and brother kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Made worse by the war because he wasn't ready, and they both knew they weren't ready. Even when Anakin was being knighted,
Yeah.
Obi-Wan goes, "Oh God, he's not ready." Like he's thinking
Who's ever
inside. Like,
ready for war? Like, come on.
speaking of the Clone Wars, we're kind of jumping into that. So, we feel his anxiety, and before we said how he wasn't worthy to be on the council, how he's had his entire life in crisis because basically the Clone Wars kind of start when Anakin is to that point of being a Jedi Knight. So the minute he becomes alone, he's also fighting this war. Do you guys have a favorite Clone Wars story to kind of that shows Obi-Wan and kind of highlights who he is during that time?
The Tartakovsky 2D Clone Wars battle on was it Jabim? It was just all raining, and like I didn't see either Obi-Wan squelches in when Anakin's already there, or Anakin squelches.
That's another planet.
Whatever the raiding planet was, he like squelches in, and like Obi-Wan's sitting there all just like miserable in the rain.
Oh, he's eating the bugs.
Yeah,
Like, Obi-Wan's like, ew.
bugs like centipedes and shit. It's weird. Either that or the clones actually like almost completely unrelated to Obi-Wan, but the clone sequence on I believe Munilus when they crash out of the LAAT in the center of the city, they just like pop up out of the side, and just start macking on droids, and they don't say a word the entire time. It's all just like and like I thought the clones were kind of lame until I watched that, and I was like, damn, these guys are great.
How about you, Lisa? Do
Thinking
you have a favorite Clone Wars?
Well, I was just bringing out the book Labyrinth of Evil by James.
Yeah.
Because it's such a great story, like their adventure of trying to capture the Neimoidians and then getting that, yeah, yeah, and then they're also like getting the chair. I can't remember what the chair was called, but like there's so many scenes in this. I remember talking about this on my other show, and the one guy whose name is Thelek Selek. And I'm like, every time you're just like, come on, like trying to say that name, it's so ridiculous. Like, gotta love Star Wars names. But yeah, I think that's a book that is kind of understated, and I'm a huge fan of James Luceno. He has fantastic books. Like he did Plagueis, obviously this one, even the Rogue One adaptation, which I haven't read, but I hear it's pretty good. Oh wait, I have read it. It was pretty good.
But one I wanted to mention for Clone Wars before we go further, there's two stories I really enjoy, and both of them were written by Karen Travis in her Clone Wars books. Yeah. Wild Space, when he goes on an adventure to a Sith homeworld of Zagula, where he is pretty much tortured by this Sith artifact that is in his brain. Yeah, that's telling him to die, Jedi die, over and over again until it drives him I can imagine like how that would crazy. It made me crazy listening to the audiobook version. I'm like, oh, to have this in my head for like 3 days straight and not lose it. And how he relies on Bail Organa, who he thought was just a stuffy politician, and he learns to trust someone that's not a Jedi. I think that's also a thing for him. Is kind of a defensive mechanism, is who to trust, and that sometimes strength comes from other places. Yeah, that right. And strength comes from other places. Like it doesn't meet strength is not just in Jedi. And the other one that I really also like, and I could listen to it like every day, is the which one? The Gambit. Duo.
Gambit's great. Yeah.
Yes, you have. I think it's always
Yeah, I've got it right here behind
Siege
you.
is the last one. What is it? Oh, Stealth. You have Stealth is the one with Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
And
this is a
just
good
for
one.
anyone listening, this is how you know which one comes first, Obi-Wan then Anakin, because they don't tell you anywhere in the thing, book 1, book 2. You just have to know. And it's a direct continuation from Stealth. And in that, they land on a planet where, in response to a locked Durd producing a bioweapon that basically will kill everyone because it's in the air when it's a bomb basically, bioweapon, and it's made from damatite, which is like a mineral they use to produce energy and stuff throughout the galaxy.
That was a great scene.
Yeah, right. So they go to this planet, and I think you see Obi-Wan did have a knack for being undercover. He had a knack for acting, had a knack, obviously, for force illusion, which we see in the very first movie. So you kind of see him bring those skills in, but all as he pretends to be Yavid and Anakin's Markle, and they have to fake the accent, and they have to go into this village and investigate. And and interesting is that he is taken in by this lady named Jacqueline, who later on, when she finds out who they really are, is really pissed. She's mad. She's like, "Oh, you guys are Jedi's are liars." And I think by that time he's hearing enough anti-Jedi sentiment that it's getting to him, and he's responding like he does with that more Jedi-ness, and he feels the need to heal. There's one worker. There's too many sick people getting sick from this damatite poisoning, and he almost killed himself with no healing crystal. He doesn't have Vakar Che, who's the master healer at the temple, to help him out. He pushes himself to the limit and then meets a little girl named Gretty, who he kind of falls in love with. Like she would be a Jedi. She is force sensitive. She'd be the best Jedi, and it kills him that he can't bring her with him and get her trained as a Jedi. And it shows that compassion that is there underneath. And, but he knows the rules are there because he's learned by now. The rules don't change for you, but, the regret is still there. It's not romantic at all. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, like how when Qui-Gon found Anakin, he felt that connection. This little girl is a natural healer, and Obi-Wan says, like, Anakin's like, why are you doing this? You're killing yourself. Stop it. Stop healing. Go to bed. You're tired. He literally is breaking down crying because he's so exhausted. He's like, why are you doing this? And he goes, well, something Bail Organa said from Wild Space. And he said, well, I can't prove our critics right. And he's like, what critics? And some people who say the Jedi are bad, the ones who say we are not here to do what we say we're going to do. Because in his mind, I mean, his intentions are good, but, just like all of us, our intentions are good. But sometimes what we do is seen by others as other. Like, we didn't hit the mark. And that's sadly a lot of his actions.
Going with that book, I do like how when the village eventually goes under the siege, like he apologizes to one of the villagers, like, sorry for bringing this here. And they're like, oh, it's not a problem. He's like, no, but the reason you're being attacked is because of us. So their lives are being expelled, even though he does help them in the end and, helps cure them, basically.
And I also kind of want to know, like, people, I think, criticize him for making these harsh decisions, but it's also the Jedi are often placed in no-win scenarios where you don't get these in real life unless you're, like, in the high ops level or something like that, where you're specifically trained to go into a situation. And, like, the situation in that case was a scientist who was threatened to make this bioweapon or her whole family would be killed. Her mother, her siblings, their families, her friends, everybody. And she was already kidnapped when they went into this conference for scientists and, like, took who they want and killed everybody else. So she's already lost so many colleagues. And, Anakin and Obi-Wan are fighting with each other and with her about what's the right thing to do. Do you just kill in your life to save the lives of countless other people and let your family be killed? Or do you do what they say? So there's, like, those hard situations that he has to deal with that normal people don't, I guess.
I can't remember if we mentioned on Praxichat Yaddle before, but Yaddle dies in one of the stories, and with Anakin being involved.
If you
And
like
he
save
feels
Anakin,
guilty
right?
of her death. Pardon?
Yeah.
Everyone knows Yaddle.
Thankful I did not
Like
like the
Kermit the Frog in drag. She's on the council in the first episode.
That was terrible.
yeah.
Like, that's so honestly a wig. I'm like, oh my gosh, no. That's not what her hair looked like.
Here's your free tip. You want to see cool, different colored lightsabers in the prequel era? Check out Jedi Council Acts of War. It's either 4 or 6 issue series that came out that was before episode 1, I think. So it was still Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. It's really a Mika Jet. He's Crook's master. He had like dual yellow sabers. That's a great comic arc. Check it out.
That's one thing I'm kind of like sad about with like the movies is they kind of like took all the interesting lightsaber colors and just condensed it to like blue and green. Yeah, one
Lots
purple.
of shades of that.
One purple.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so let's segment from the war and the sadness to something that we want to make sure we cover is Obi-Wan's love life, which is kind of a ridiculous thought if you just think about it off the top of your head. Okay, but a lot of authors, I think, were trying to claim this for their own, and they weren't really working together. These authors, I could think of 3 instances. Lisa, can you think of the first one, or when he was the youngest? You touched on Sarasi earlier. Kind of
so that would be in the timeline. She's the first one that he met in 44. There's Lena Cobray, Cabral, sorry, and that was more like an infatuation crush, and it was just like in one book, and that was really it. But then Siri Tashi, now she's the one that was like more significant because she was a Jedi.
Yeah.
And like when he met her, obviously still in the Jedi Apprentice series, like they admit that they love each other and then stay with the Jedi Order, but then later on, of course, they admit that they love each other again when she's dying. That's it's just so typical of Obi. Always have somebody dying in his arms. Like it's just
I know. Everyone he loves dies in his arms. Qui-Gon,
Satine,
like everybody. Yeah. It's sad.
Yeah.
And Siri, I really liked in that when they were younger, they fought a lot. Like when they were younglings in the temple, they hated each other, which I think is common with people as they were young. And then when they met again, when they were 18, because she was the Padawan of Adi Gallia, and they were on a mission together when he was 18, and then it was kind of like, it was like a romantic situation, and I thought they copied a lot of her character for Satine, like even her look. She had a purple lightsaber, by the way.
She was, she was one.
Yeah, and they were on this planet protecting this boy who was this like master encryption kid. By them, they were left by themselves and had to hijack a ship. It was like a fun kind of thing, and got swept in the moment for a couple days. We weren't told, more than that. But yeah, like you said, they decided to, or actually Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan Qui-Gon and Yoda confronted Obi-Wan in the room of 1,000 fountains and sat him down and go, we're not changing the rules for you guys. And I think that's one of the reasons that Obi-Wan kind of gets set on the rules later. As he's like, yep, they're for the greater good. And you guys will resent each other if you leave the Jedi Order. You'll come to resent each other. That'll be bigger than your love eventually. And they come to see that's true, and they just...
It's like some double.
No, but I think it's true. I really think it's true. I think they would, because their purpose would be gone. A person can't fulfill that for you in your life. You have to really have your own self. And I think if they did that under that circumstances, if it was different, yeah, they were in a different kind of Jedi Order, but that order at that time. So they cut ties, and they decide to pretend nothing happened until she dies in his arms in her early 30s. Yeah, because of blaster fire. I'm like, a lot of that mirrors the team.
Or died in his arms.
Yep.
They all do.
Yeah.
They all die in his arms.
They all die. Except... Okay, so you have the list, Lisa. Do you have Taria
Then-
on the list?
I didn't finish that list. No, I don't
Okay,
have
but
her.
keep going on your list.
Well, then Satine, but I don't know how much
Yeah.
everyone wants to talk about Satine. Matt's shaking his head. She's there. Okay, we can't ignore it.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I was going to say an important one, maybe not so much because there was no romance, but there was a romance, which is Annalene from the Kenobi book by John Jackson Miller. So, they have their little dates and hangouts and protecting each other from Tuskens. Like he even cooked for her once, and she was like, "Yeah, you should never cook again."
Yeah.
I think it's again what he was presented with that scenario. Like I could do this, but then I lose my purpose. Like I will lose who I become, and that's who the Jedi are. So it's like you have to make the choice. Do you want to be that person, or do you want to be that person? So it's definitely a choice that he makes. Taria Damson is, huh?
I was gonna say he's so ingrained with having to help and serve that he just can't help himself.
Just doing it in the constructs of the order, because that's what he knows. Yeah, that was reinforced in his life in a few times. Like when he got was expelled for leaving to help those kids. It's whenever he felt like he should just follow his heart and go against the code, he was punished for it. So he kind of learns that it's not. It's not going to change for me. But I was going to say Taria Damson is one that actually is from those Clone Wars books, and she's a human from Ghana, but she has blue hair, or it's like a teal blue, and I think she's hilarious. Like I get, and it's actually told that she's like a one-night stand. Like she is. They just have a connection because they're pretty much the same person, except that she is she has a sense of humor too, like a witty. She's very much a female Obi-Wan, just kind of weird, but right. Because she's likable, it's snarky, she's just kind of a tease. But she's also aware of him so well because they grew up together. It was like a friend, and they decided to nope, that was it. We need to we're who we are. We're not going to do this anymore. And then on this mission, I like her because she actually takes Ahsoka under her wing. While Ahsoka's waiting for Anakin and Obi-Wan on this mission, and together they lead a tournament to train younglings in the new training arena they built for the war. And so they have these little team wars, like color wars. I think that's kind of fun. Like she's kind of a fun person.
I loved Obi-Wan.
I'm at
two of us here were like, yeah,
Obi-Wan.
Yeah. I am writing a fan fiction of him, so yeah.
I will read your fan fiction. That's awesome. If he was played by somebody else, would it be different? But you know what? I didn't know Ewan McGregor until I watched that, and then I went to Ewan McGregor watching Frenzy. I watched every single thing that man has made.
Seen Trainspotting?
Yes.
And
the Pillow Book one, holy crap! Pillow Book messed me up. That's oh my! I'm like, ew! I wish I'd never seen that. The dude has a lot of movies he's gonna regret. Maybe he regrets now that his kids are older and don't watch me. Don't watch me in that. Don't. You will see him having intercourse with the guy on the balcony of a build. No, I don't need to see. I thought. Yeah, he does a lot of drugs in this movie. Oh wow, yeah.
That's one thing I was going to say. It's Anakin and Obi-Wan. When they went drinking, they must have gotten up to the most craziest drinking nights. I don't know what they got up to. But yeah.
I want to see a night when they're out on the town and Anakin's the designated driver.
That's for everyone.
Yes, driving. He's I see Obi-Wan as a mean drunk or just a silly,
he's
or
British. He can handle
it.
I think he's a passive aggressive, resigned drunk. It's oh, you're gonna do whatever the fuck you want to do. It's all right. I'll deal with it. Don't worry about it.
Like I would do.
Maybe.
Or.
I was the first Jedi who had to fight a Sith. No one else did. Just me.
Yeah, Obi-Wan didn't like, not that he didn't like machines, he had a much better trust of living people because they had the will to protect themselves and he could work with that. Like he had an affinity for beasts. No, he had an affinity for riding animals. He liked animals. He was an animal person.
Great with EOPs.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
With
He's
the
awesome.
Opies, he
He's
had
great with me.
the lizard boy in episode 3.
Oh,
Oh,
Boga. I thought it was
yeah.
Boga. It was Boga.
Boga is what he
Boga.
calls her.
Ractal was
Yeah.
Boga. Yeah.
I
So
remember
like
him
my
writing
term.
Rue.
Rue's on
He had
Tatooine,
one.
but Ractal
Oh,
is the
Rue's
one
on.
that's my
Okay.
term.
He had a Baractal on his mission with Qui-Gon and Master Apprentice, where they had to ride him for a hunt, a ritual hunt for the soon-to-be queen, and yeah. So it's kind of cool. Like, and I love the scene because it's he's petting the Baractal and like he's one of the first to get on one that they don't know because these animals obviously are kind of like horses. You need to have a trust bond there before you ride them, really. And Qui-Gon's like, you did a great job. And Obi-Wan whispers and pets the animals, like, you hear that? He approves of you. Like, it's just so cute.
I'm just imagining the scene from Bob's Burgers with Gene when he finds his new identity and says, "This is me now," and then it's like him like an Indian headdress. This is me now. This is me now, and it's just Obi-Wan with like the blonde women dead in his arms. This is me now.
Oh my god.
That's the tattoo he gets. This is me now. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because it does mirror Qui-Gon's thing with Hall, too, except that, Obi-Wan actually comes to terms with it. And how he responds is a lot about him. Like, he is, not happy about it and sad that it's happened, but he's, like, accepting. Where Qui-Gon went on a murder rage. He was like, nah, die! A little different.
He does go to Korriban once.
Oh.
Goes with Anakin in the final showdown Jedi quest. We're trying to follow that guy Grant Omega.
I don't read those, yeah.
So like, if anywhere he would have fallen, it would be there.
Was that the one where they're chasing the guy with the long neck? The doctor?
His name is Grant Omega. Hold on. I've got it in my notes. I don't remember what he looks like.
Isn't he that guy with like the long neck?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It goes like this.
I thought he like never really appeared in anything though. It was just like one of those like background characters.
There's also that
wasn't it the Jedi Council Acts of War one? Because like weren't a lot of those background like Jedi in that? I don't know.
What's that? Not the Family Guy, but Seth Green. It's
Robot
also Seth
Chicken?
Green. Yes. And like they have your all poop, and like he comes in, and like everyone's dead, and he just starts like sitting on everyone's chairs and like mimicking and and then he works in the Death Star eventually.
Oh yeah, he's like a janitor or something.
Yeah. No, he's in the cafeteria and he's like serving food, and he's like, oh. I do want to mention one thing. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with this story, but Lone Wolf, A Tale of Obi-Wan and Luke, which is by Abel Pina. And although it was right when like the buyout happened with Disney, so they did put the short story on StarWars.com. Now you can find it on StarWarsTimeline.net, the Joe Borgiano's website. It's a really remarkable little like 100-page story, just about like the immediate moment after he like takes Luke, and he goes to Nar Shaddaa with Grievous's ship, and he tries to like sell it, and then he's attacked because he's trying to actually find Thulm, Master Thulm, actually, and his lover, Sra. Can't remember what her name is off the top of my head.
Frost.
Yeah, and then exactly, and then comes across 2 Dark Jedi, and it's their kind of like battle and his moments of like first moments with Luke. And there's a scene where he does like this whole like first and last kiss when he's about to like fight this one Jedi or Dark Jedi, and he puts Luke against like the wall in this cradle board that he got from this other Jedi who actually was a Sunrider. And he just like he has this like intense emotion and love for Luke, and he's like, I hope that like maybe Beru and Owen won't like Luke, and I will keep Luke, and it's just like it's a powerful moment finally for Obi-Wan to like find a bit of love, because he's like, I'm going to die for this child. Like that's what sets up to like when he goes to Tatooine after that, and it's just highly recommend, if you guys haven't read it, read the story.
Yeah, I should probably check it out. It's on the list. If that.
It's very good.
So we were talking before about the new show. What beats do we hope are redone in the show? Like we all think it's plausible, probably, that he could lead on motivation.
I'm pretty sure Leia's going to be in the show from what I've seen.
Do we want
Yeah.
to discuss the leaks or keep the leaks out of this?
Oh, I mean, I don't know how many months are going to actually.
They said they casted an actor to play Leia. What we know.
Exactly.
Leia.
Well, he knew that Vader was alive. Absolutely did.
Well, he found out
In James Luceno, Dark
Yeah.
Lord of the Sith,
Yeah, Dark
there's
Lord
a
of the
whole scene
Sith,
at the
right?
end where he's going like, "What? Vader's alive?" Like at drinking a glass of water. Like,
is that the one where he finds
knew.
out in a cafe by watching the Holonet?
That's the
So
one where he
Yeah.
wrote,
Life and Legends.
he sights his lightsaber into like the entrance of like a shuttle and cuts Fang Zar right down the back. I actually really liked that book. That was a really good. It had really good descriptions of like Anakin adapting to his new bot, like having fake legs and it's like
Again,
it's so
James
awkward to
Luceno.
move. Like I have to adapt my lightsaber style because I'm not as limber and mobile. It was pretty cool.
We know that he knew Vader, that Anakin was Vader, because he saw while he was in the temple hacking the security system that he saw, the image of him bowing to Palpatine and calling him Vader. So he knew that. And then they thought after that he left him dead on the side of the, in Mustafar. But they have the news there. That's the thing. The Holonet news. Vader was on it, and that's how he found out that Vader was alive, and he knows exactly. So when they say Vader on there, and I think Palpatine didn't want to be seen. He used a Vader as like his propaganda tool as well. Like intimidation wise, there's nothing more intimidating than this guy. Yeah, and how to rewrite history and like this is our regime now and you're following. And Vader was like the figurehead, so he was a very public figure. And so when we saw him and then his name is Vader, then he knew who was under there was Anakin, and it made sense to him. Because obviously he left him burnt and scarred, and like, oh yeah, he's in the suit with a respirator on it.
There's also other errors in that book, just so you know.
There's a good point too. So, yes, absolutely, positively, it was an intentional lie because from Obi-Wan and Yoda's point of view, like you would have to kill Vader, you would have to kill the Emperor. Like what Luke did was so against the grain from the old school Jedi way of thinking that they didn't they basically thought it would never ever happen. So that's why they of course you're going to try and tell him that he killed his dad. And I feel like and that's Luke's biggest strength is being able to see the minuscule amount of good left in bad people and being able to draw that out. But of course it was definitely an intentional lie because he was trying to him and Yoda were trying to get him on the path where there was this inevitable showdown. They didn't expect him to put his lightsaber away and say, "I won't fight you." I mean, it seems like he comes around. They had the conversation right outside his X-wing after Yoda dies, where Obi-Wan does fess up and blah blah blah, a certain point of view.
Yeah.
So I really can't, I can't say how much of that, the intentional lie contributed to the eventual success. I just think Luke was going to do Luke because Luke is Luke,
Luke is the one to defeat him. Yeah. To bring him back. Beat him, to bring him back.
For Obi-Wan, even at that point, I think if Anakin would have repented and, he would have welcomed him with open arms. But on the other hand, Vader, there was I don't think there was any capability on his side to reconcile without fighting. Well,
Yeah.
and not just that, but like your master, your brother, your sort of father figure leaves you for dead on the side of a mountain with one arm about to get consumed by lava. Like, I don't think there's any forgiveness there.
Mhm. So in the Return of the Jedi novelization, there's more dialogue obviously than what's not in the movie. So there's this one yeah, exactly. Exactly, yeah. So the scene where we were talking about of like them outside the X-Wing after Yoda just died. So I'll just read you this little paragraph here. So he goes, "You should not think of that machine as your father." And then it was the teacher speaking again. So this is like Luke kind of notices that like sometimes Ben is very like, oh, and then other times he's very Jedi. When I saw what had become of him, I tried to dissuade him, to draw him back from the dark side. I fought. Father fell into a molten pit. Your father clawed his way out of that fiery pool. The change had been burned into him forever. He was Darth Vader, without a trace of Anakin Skywalker. Irredeemably dark, scarred, kept alive only by machinery and his own black will.
Obi-Wan has like a very strong like good versus evil dichotomy. He has a hard time like seeing the middle ground, I think. Like he sees things in terms of good and evil. It seems like he has a hard time with like any kind of like gray area or like almost change, I'd say.
I was gonna say, even with Anakin, just how he was younger, like he almost wouldn't seem regretful. Just kind of like kept her on. Like he doesn't really talk about it much. Like, oh yeah, whoops,
Yeah.
like hair flip, everything's fine.
Oh gosh,
Actually,
well, he
the
also
lady
got
that
23
he met,
when he died or fell.
yeah,
Vader. How old was Anakin when he became Vader? Like 23, and he was fighting a war.
roughly, yeah.
Yeah, he had time to self-reflect or be repentant or anything. In the Kenobi book, they deal a lot with him internal monologue about how he's sad. I mean, but this is right after the fall, and all the struggle he's dealing with, the guilt, the regret. I know that's hard to convey on a visual story. So, what do you guys hope to see? Do you see any of that conveyed, being that it's like 10 years after the fact? Do you want to see any of that in the show?
2 of the 6 episodes are going to be Mando and Baby Yoda.
There you go, yeah. Repeat
I
that,
feel like
Pete.
the show has potential, but so far I'm quite worried. Like, have you seen the Grand Inquisitor and how he looks?
That's why I went, ugh.
He's got a short head. His head's too short, man.
Didn't they give him contacts?
Yeah, like a clown.
So bad.
His eyes are tiny.
Suddenly, Disney is too poor to afford prosthetics.
I know it's hard to adapt a cartoon to real life, but they did I think they did pretty well with Cad Bane, and they did okay with Ahsoka.
I mean,
I thought Ahsoka looked pretty bad.
I was okay with it.
This was too short. The tails were too short.
Yeah.
Cad Bane was too squashed too.
Yeah, Cad Bane.
Cad Bane looked funny, but like, I don't know. Cad Bane just looked funny to me, like off. But I think that's just because of like how he looked in the show. I think.
I think I like the Clone Wars, but I mean, they're not that animated is lesser than the movies, but it's almost like they're caricatures of themselves. It's like Obi-Wan's a little more snarky and sophisticated and sassy, and Anakin's a little more angsty. And yeah, it's like they took that character and just kind of pinpointed on that thing and made it bigger, amplified it.
Turn it up to 11.
Yeah, pretty much. So I love James Arnold Taylor. Like, he's great to the fans. He's got,
For me, for the new series, the one thing I'm worried about is how they're going to handle the Vader meeting Anakin. Vader meeting Obi-Wan. Is it going to be some sort of flashback? Is it going to be a Force vision? Are they actually going to physically meet in real life? I'm just sort of.
Is it going to be on Tatooine or like, where's it going to happen? Like that's what the question is. Like, did Obi-Wan actually leave Tatooine? Did he leave Luke not be guarded? Like, it's very confusing.
I think there's
full disclosure, like I have no investment on it. Like, I have no investment I guess I probably should have disclosed. So I have no investment in the new canon. I'm not gonna. I don't shit on it because that is the same way I got into the EU back in the day. That's new fans coming to the fandom nowadays. But I personally, I have no investment on how the story ends up. I do enjoy watching it, and that was the main thing for me. Is like I remember how excited I was, like finding new stories growing up, and like when I first started reading novels or like finding the comic books or whatever. I remember how much that meant to me. That's the same way that new fans feel about the new stuff. So I'm never ever gonna like try and take that away from them or shit on it in any way. But for me personally, it's not something I consume. It's not something I'm emotionally invested in. So I do consume a little bit, but still not emotionally invested. So I've seen Mando, I've seen Book of Boba Fett. I enjoy it. At the same time, like it's not going to break my heart if they make a decision that I disagree with, just because I've disassociated myself from it. But so I am like from that point of view, I'm very interested to see Kenobi because I do love Ewan as Obi-Wan. I think he was the perfect actor to cast to play young Alec Guinness. I think he's great. So I am excited to see it. I am a little. I'm wondering how they're going to pull off him and Vader back together again, but I'm sure it's going to be good.
Yeah.
I'm kind of
I think that's
envisioning
my
like
only
a
worry.
Book of Boba Fett scenario for this. Like I think it's going to end up pretty similar.
Is this actually still the podcast?
Yeah, is that a
Yes,
stick shift?
Just
Is it?
texted you.
Apologies. All right, hold on. I'm sorry. I thought we were just talking. Okay.
No,
Okay.
I see that steering wheel. You got VTEC.
Huh? Yeah. Come on.
This is what happens when you do a podcast hosted on a platform that anyone can just jump in.
I mean, not anybody, but like anybody who's like involved in the Praxeum.
Yeah. Kyle's my co-host. I'm not gonna say
Yeah.
that away.
Both of us are the brains. Like between the two of us, we've got a single brain.
Stick shift. Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm going to reserve comments on that one. But
Going back to Kenobi though,
bringing it back.
like I'm still nervous about like with Vader meeting Obi-Wan because like I mean it does kind of give away that mystique that you get on the Death Star of like after 19 years run into each other again, and like that I feel that has more of a presentation than they did meet a couple times.
Well, I like the line, a presence I haven't felt since, and then he trails off because he knew that they were going to make
we
a
don't
Kenobi
know.
series.
Yeah.
We got to leave it
It was
open-ended.
Vader who said it. It was Vader who said that. I was going to say, I have one question to Donna. Going along with the Kenobi book, do you feel that he kind of deems himself a little bit because of like how he helps Annalene in the end and like gets her to go into university and like takes her kids off that world? Because like her kids were like getting set up to like fail, like she calls her daughter a voyeur at one point because she's like obsessed with Obi-Wan, and then her son who's been like hanging with the Galt kids and just terrorizing and committing like atrocities. I don't know if Donna's still there or not.
She might be
Frozen.
For me too.
I thought she was just really good at sitting still.
No, sorry, my
I
internet.
didn't see her move at all.
Yeah, my internet cut out completely. Just
You hear her?
Wait, you don't hear it? Oh no, not
I can
again.
hear her.
She's not again.
hear me.
Discord.
This is why you need the app.
Here, I'll disconnect.
What did you
and-
ask, Lisa?
No, I
Just
won't
have her ask
disconnect.
it again.
I'll probably
I'll
not
hear
get
Hey,
back on.
Lisa, before you go, ask her one more time. She'll answer while you reboot.
Okay. Yeah. I wanted to know if you thought that he got his redemption by helping Annalene go to university and, getting her off that planet, off Tatooine, and at least getting her children's off of there too. Okay.
All right.
Back.
Do you hear this?
Yeah. Yep. About if redemption came with Annalene. I don't think anything could really do that for him, but I do think it was a step in the healing process for him. That he could still do good as an undercover Jedi Knight.
Yeah.
Like it's possible to still make an impact in the universe, and doesn't have to be galactic battles. It could just be helping your neighbor, which is a good lesson for everybody. He's still the biggest of battles. He's had to deal the negotiation among planets. He's had these giant problems to solve, and now it's like, how can you just help your neighbor? That simple. Have you read the new book? Anyone read Brotherhood? It just came out on Tuesday.
I've heard of it, but I haven't read it.
Literally a space Jesus in there. I'm like, oh, there's a line. They're taking it for real. He like gets almost like sacrificed. Basically, he does learn that the truth doesn't always win, which is kind of nice. And it's actually a really good story that fits in really nicely with the old and the new. Yeah, Mike Chen just wrote it. It just came out May 10th.
I read an interview with him where he was talking about how he sneakily canonized the Anakin Asajj Ventress fight on Yavin as like like a throwaway dialogue in the book. Yeah,
he did a lot, which is great. Just little nods. He even has Cal Kestis make an appearance. Like,
oh, yeah, hire
support
me.
the people that you know do it right. Please do. Please read it. Audiobook. Support the people that are doing it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've already written the book, guys. Just, I'll hand it over. There we go.
Exactly.
Yeah. He's mentioned in almost every single one of the NJO, and then Fate of the Jedi. Like they talk about him constantly. In the Junior Jedi Knights, the Vader Fortress one. I don't know if you guys have read that one. It's all the story. Yeah, it's a story about how Tahiri and Anakin go to his home or his fortress and get Obi-Wan's lightsaber. So, no, it was another guy who then Uldir takes it, and then they have to get it back from him or something.
Uldir, wasn't he a fraud?
Yeah. Sorry, Ikrit. That's what I meant.
Because Kenobi's blade is YJK 6. It has him on the front cover with it. It's been years since I've read that, but I'm pretty sure he gets it. And then it's is it still his blade in the NJO? Because then the Landvik crystal from the bong gets put in Anakin's saber. So I can't remember if it's.
It was
It's not a spoiler anymore. That book was years ago. It's not a spoiler anymore, right?
I'm sorry, 10 years was your cutoff. No more spoilers.
Spoiler for Star Wars fans.
He fucking dies. They all die.
A little bit. Every time we even hear die now. Did you read Skywalkers yet? By Abel Pina?
I haven't yet, but I did talk about Lone Wolf on here, though.
All right, good. But we're going to do that tomorrow, too, Lisa. We're going to go really into Lone Wolf tomorrow. It's going to be great. But there is, speaking of that callback to Owen, I don't want to spoil it for y'all, but I do highly recommend digging into Skywalkers for a potential of what they may do. No, not necessarily, because they probably obviously don't care. But what I'm saying is the story is already out there, and I do wonder if there's this one angle that was suggested in that story that will change everything. I wonder if they're going to run with it. So you'll know.
I was going to say, I've posted it several times.
It's on Joe's website too, StarWarsTimeline.net. But yeah, it's you'll know what I mean. It's only going to take you an evening to read it. It's 130 pages maybe, and at the end you're going to, oh, Kyle said this. I wonder, and it's going to build for it. Yeah, speculating on Obi-Wan and it's that story in particular. It's a shame that not a whole lot of people even know that it exists. Unfortunately, excuse me, I had to beep at that guy because he didn't turn his signal on. But yeah, there is a lot of major implications with the brotherhood between Obi-Wan and Anakin and other situations, and it's really worth a read. It changes everything. Yeah, and I do wonder what parts of it they're going to take, if any. But it can just add to the speculation. And it's a good story for Abel Pina because he never really got credit for writing fantastic books. Oh my God, Oh yeah, and like supernatural encounters reflects a lot of what we find in Skywalkers in particular. So I would consider that. I don't know if it made. We put a list together of the essential reads for SE. I'm pretty sure that would be on there. I haven't looked at it in a hot minute, and I can't remember at the top of my head. But it's important. Oh yeah, we had to put that in there. There's too much right. Yeah,
Wait,
yours.
the book or the 3 comic arcs?
Both.
Oh, all of that's on there. Yeah, you'll need a basic foundation of what's going on with the Throw Yours and basically the start of the Jedi Order. Every order, really. It's all going to go into the deep history, and so that's actually kind of like, not to give too much away, but Joe's talked a lot on the topic. But that's really not that long ago, Dawn of the Jedi. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no big deal. 25K.
Yeah, but by the time we get to that in SE, you'll see what I mean. It's like, oh, all right. That took forever to get to. You'll see. So much
I
more.
know Donna had in her notes of like what to share of our favorite lines of Obi-Wan or favorite meme. I think that'd be good to talk about.
Yeah, we can get into that today. Cat's restless. What's everybody's favorite meme? I know, gosh, you've been mean to death, especially all the people.
We're still flying half a ship.
Or your
Yeah, I
favorite
like it.
quote, because he's a man of wisdom or one-liners. So, what's your favorite meme or quote?
I mean, it was indirect for Obi-Wan. It was Anakin, but this whole operation was your idea.
I mean, there's so many great Obi-Wan lines, and like I will say, as a combination between him and Anakin, and Matt again, it's from the Clone Wars series. When he says like, often in life to get ahead, you have to take 2 steps back. Then Anakin goes, or you just fall. I thought that was a really good line between the two of them.
Yeah.
Serious
And
foreshadowing.
of course, classic hello there. Like I use that all the time, expecting somebody one day to say General Kenobi back to me, and no one does.
Oh yeah,
This?
I see that.
Star Wars? All this? Man, I mean, they already have the Church of Trek. Like, I think that there are formal Star Wars faiths, but I don't think any of them go into the depth of the weirdness with the Star Trek fandom. No offense, Star Trek fans.
I know it's either one of the European or one of the Norwegian countries. Their
In
largest demographic for religion is Jedi.
I thought that was
amazing.
England, and it was like some like specific like protest thing for the census.
Probably.
Either way.
Norway hates the fact that they were a Christian state, so it's probably, I'm gonna guess Norway, but
It's England. It's for sure.
I thought it
England.
was England. I thought it was like a
For sure
specific like,
England.
protest thing for the census.
Like, yeah, they did that on QI, the Quite Interesting show. Stephen Fry.
Oh,
They
I
talked
love
about
QI.
that. Yeah.
I miss Stephen Fry.
I love him too. Oh, if I could
Okay,
have
so,
anyone
yeah,
at his
it-
dinner.
The well-known one was in England, but it's happened in a lot of countries.
Oh, well, my favorite is actually a quote from the original movie. Who's the more foolish? The fool or the man who follows him.
Yeah.
And I always love that. I have
thinking
that
that
as a plaque in my office, and I look at it just about every day.
That's such a
it is
poignant line.
word. Yeah. Yeah.
But he's sassy as hell.
On the Death Star, like no problem at all. Like nothing to worry about here. Like
Meta explanation we all know is because George Lucas didn't think ahead, like didn't know that he was his father. Like he didn't. Anakin was Darth Vader.
It's like everyone puts all this stock into what would the George Lucas sequels look like. George didn't know what the fuck he was doing half the time. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, it's just saying his ideas evolved.
Well, even his daughter Katie said that these weren't good enough. She
He needs
says,
to check
"These are
for
not-
his
my
vibe.
dad thought- No, these aren't good enough. These are not what Star Wars is about or what it had in mind." Well, he admits he doesn't like directing, so he's a great creative. Like you said, he just needs to be the creative and the visionary force. He is so involved in every little thing, but that's kind of what you need, because you need someone that looks at like, does this costume match this? Does this thing, little aspects, all these details have to really line up. And he's good at that, but that is exhausting. That takes a toll. I mean, it took a toll in his personal life. It was terrible. Yeah, way. The relationship with his kids, like, it took a toll to be able, when you're fueled, and as an artist, you're so fueled by your own passion projects, and to have not only the desire but the ability to hone down and change and tweak every little part of that to create your vision, it's all encompassing. There was no other life.
It bothers the myth that he had no control over it and no oversight. That bothers me. He obviously was the end all and be all of any major story points that came out of the EU. He wasn't involved in any way.
He kind of like was like the guide of it, or like he's like the walls of the the river, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
It flows how it moves, but he keeps it kind of like hemmed in, or like guided, if that makes sense.
Kyle, the other Kyle, you're on mute, just so you know. I can see you talking.
Ultimately, thank you.
Animated.
He paid to create one universe, right? Ultimately, I don't even know why any of this is an argument, and he clearly has stated that this is not his Star Wars with what they're doing. So let's just get back to it.
And he had an outline they could have followed, and that's what baffles me. Why didn't you follow his outline? I know there was mistakes, but the thing is, I know that like Abrams hated the prequels. It's very odd. He hated the prequels.
Oh.
But like, how about getting someone that really enjoys all of Star Wars and can bring something like that to another level?
That's never been their model, though. They don't like creators that really enjoyed Star Wars. Like if you were a writer or if you were a comic book author or penciler, and the first thing that you would say in an interview is that you love the brand, they wouldn't pick you. That's always kind of been like a thing.
Dude, Dan Harmon was asked, what was it like watching season 4 of Community? Because Dan Harmon got sacked from Community, and he's like, it's like watching your ex-girlfriend blow some other guy on the beach. Obviously not very PC, but you can kind of understand the feeling. Very visceral description.
If anyone has any final thoughts, or we could promote, if you have anything you would like to promote at this time, shout it out. Not really. Just keep acting on Zodiac Task Force. Look it up right now. And yes, and I will be at Celebration on Thursday and Friday, so I'll hope to make a compilation of that. Yeah, I have to meet with other board members. Yeah, I'll be share that with you guys, and if we want to do another one later, we can about it.
Darn Katarn on Twitter. You can find me at lefthandpath23 on Instagram and Snapchat too. I don't really use that, but it's out there. And then legendslibrarypodcast.com with me and Lisa. And if you're really trying to reach me, you can reach me on the Supernatural Encounters Discord or via Joe, StarWarsTimeline.net.
Like Kyle said, you can tune in and listen to me on Legends Library at legendslibrarypodcast.com. I do have just a little quick joke that I wanted to share about my little story that I've been working on about Obi-Wan. And kind of like with his troll lines, he's having a conversation with Satine about Mandalore, and he'd be like, so the sun is called Mandalore, the world is called Mandalore, the system's called Mandalore, and the ruler's called Mandalore. Like, it's like and then she's just like, yes. like, and he was like, okay, so I'm working on that, kind of like continuing the troll of Obi-Wan.
Nice.
Yeah.
You can't find me anywhere. Don't look for me. I don't want to.
You moderate, so if you do something wrong on our Discord channel, he'll be the one.
No, I don't moderate the Discord. I'm just a
the Reddit.
I'm a participant in the Discord. I mod for the Praxeum subreddit.
There you go.
You don't really find me anywhere. I don't do anything.
Ambitious.
Ambitious Cheesecake on Discord and Reddit. You could find me linked on both subreddit and the Discord server. I don't really have any projects other than the Praxeum. The Praxeum is my project, essentially.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
Yeah, may the Force be with you.
Yeah.
May the Force break your chains.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.